So yesterday I interviewed Ben Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, and we talked about what could Joe Biden focus on next. Early last week, the report was that tax reform would be next after COVID relief now being done. Earlier this week, we heard it's going to be a $3 trillion infrastructure, schools and families package, which will be next. But in the back of all of this is the push to expand voting rights. And I would argue, a very strong case to be made that the advantage of going next to voting rights is twofold. Number one, it's of paramount importance to win elections that as many people be able to vote as possible, and that Republicans not be allowed to succeed with what they are doing. Remember that Republicans in the aftermath of the 2020 election launched, proposed, wrote, are starting to work on more than 250 different voter suppression bills across more than 40 states. So not only is the issue of expanding voting rights relevant for winning elections, it's of particularly timely importance because Republicans are trying to do the exact opposite. In addition to this, there's the context of the filibuster. Now, we'll get in a moment to what is in the voting rights bill that the House passed. But if you are thinking, as Democrats are, we may need to do something with the filibuster to get things done in the next 2 years, with Democrats having the White House, House, and Senate. And it's the filibuster being there that may prevent us from doing that. Is there any better issue over which we could justify doing, again, it's a modification of the filibuster, elimination, we don't know, but what would be a better case to make than this is about voting? Republicans are blocking voting rights. We must do something with the filibuster. So that's if you want to make a case for why it should indeed be voting rights expansion that should be focused on first, you could make the case that it's because Republicans are actively doing the opposite. So Democrats must push back against those 250 bills. Because if you believe you'll need filibuster changes to get other things done, it's probably politically more viable to justify changing the filibuster over something as important as, like, listen, with guns, I think it would be justified in theory to modify the filibuster to try to get things done. But I think from a public relations standpoint, it would be more difficult. With something like this is voting rights, you arguably have the most justifiable reason to do it. Now, would there be any Republican support for this voting rights bill in the Senate? My understanding is, and again, this is a topic that often there's disagreement about. I don't believe that there's a budget reconciliation argument to be made for voting rights because it's not a budget issue. It's not a spending issue, although certainly some of the initiatives cost money. Maybe I'm wrong and you could do voting rights via budget reconciliation. I've not read anything so far that says you could. And in the House, the 800-page bill passed basically along party lines. And it does a ton of stuff, not all of which Republicans want, much of which some Republicans want none of. This bill would create minimum standards for states in terms of how they must run elections, federal standards that states must abide by. It would basically destroy a lot of the voter ID proposals and laws in a variety of different states. It would restore voting rights to former felons, period, not states will vote as referendums. No, it restores voting rights to former felons. It puts in place requirements like automatic voter registration, no excuse mail-in balloting, which means you don't need a qualifying reason to explain why you want to vote by mail. You can just say, I want to vote by mail, and that's it. And a lot of these provisions are the exact opposite of what Republicans at the state level are doing. Now, it's important to remember, many of the Republicans in the Senate who would be voting on this bill don't necessarily have the same perspective or opinion on these issues as the state level Republican legislators that are working on the voter suppression bills. But still, I don't know that you get any Republican support for this. The other thing is on gerrymandering, and gerrymandering we've talked about many times over the years. This bill that has passed the House, and we'll see what happens in the Senate, would require states to use independent commissions to draw congressional districts. And right now, this would significantly hurt Republicans. You could imagine a situation in the future where it's Democrats who have gotten to draw the majority of the districts, and such a provision could hurt Democrats. But remember that even who gets to draw the districts aside, because of the urban-rural divide, it favors Republicans in terms of district drawing at a sort of core level. So that's a huge deal. Republicans know that part of the reason they win some districts in purple states, even in red states, is by drawing them in very particular ways that we've exposed before. So this is a major deal if it could be done. And what needs to be balanced by Joe Biden and by Democrats here in terms of determining whether this is the next thing that they want to deal with is, number one, the importance and the urgency, given that there's an election now in 5 minus 25, 19 months. We're 19 months from the midterms. And if Republicans just do what they're doing in all of these different states, it will hurt the left in 2022. There's no doubt. So there's that urgency. There's the justification for using enfranchisement as a valid reason to do something with the filibuster, maybe do away with, maybe just reform it, mandate a talking filibuster, maybe make some other changes. And because it could set up the possibility of the infrastructure plan and of other things in the remainder of these first 2 years of Joe Biden's term. So that's the gist of it. I'm curious to hear from you. What do you want Joe Biden and Democrats focusing on next? Should it be the tax reform plan, which I think politically is the most difficult at this point in time, given the circumstances with the pandemic and economy, which we'll talk about in a moment? Should it be the infrastructure spending plan, where there is maybe some more Republican support, but they will be opposed to much of it? Or is it the voting rights expansion? Let me know what you would like to see Joe Biden and Democrats tackle next. One of our sponsors is Magic Spoon, the breakfast cereal that tastes just like the sugary, tasty, delicious cereals we loved as kids, but without the sugar and without the carbs. Magic Spoon is sweet and delicious with 0 grams of sugar, 13 grams of protein, and only 4 net carbs, making it perfect for a low-carb or keto diet. This month, Magic Spoon is releasing 2 amazing new flavors. We're talking about cookies and cream and maple waffle. Only available for a limited time. Of course, you can still get cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, and cinnamon. Build your own variety pack. Our team has tried every flavor. We keep asking them to send us more. Magic Spoon is as good as it sounds. Magic Spoon ships to the U.S. and Canada, and you'll get $5 off and free shipping when you go to magicspoon.com/Pakman and use the coupon code Pakman. I've put the link underneath this video.